This presentation reviews the passive voice. Forming the passive voice. Let's look at these two sentences. The women prepare the food. The food is prepared by the women. In the first sentence, we have a regular, simple present tense verb, prepare. In the second sentence, the verb is prepared. So verb be is, and the past participle, prepared. These two sentences focus on different subjects. In the first sentence, we have a doer subject. That is, the subject of the sentence does the action, prepare. Compare that to the other sentence, where we have a receiver subject. That is, the subject receives the action of the verb. The food doesn't do anything in the second sentence. It receives the preparation from the subject, the logical subject, which is the women, by the women. We're going to call the first kind of sentence an active voice sentence. That's the most common one, the one we usually use. And the second sentence is the passive voice. Here are two other examples. Doctors prescribe Lasix for high blood pressure. The main verb is prescribe. Lasix is prescribed for high blood pressure by doctors. And here our passive voice verb is prescribed. So in this case, we usually know that doctors are the people who prescribe medications. So we don't have to mention that. That's called the agent. And we can drop it out if it's clear, whoever that is. And we just have the following sentence. Lasix is prescribed for high blood pressure. So the form of the passive voice has two pieces to it. It has a form of be, so that second column, am, is, are, was, were, has, have, had, been, all of those are forms of the verb be. And then we use some kind of past participle. That's the third column, used and seen. Used, of course, is an example of a regular verb, and seen is an example of an irregular verb. When do we use the passive? We use it when the doer is unknown. Her purse was stolen from her desk. We don't know who did that, so it's good to use the passive here. Was stolen. Notice this time the helping verb, be, is in the past tense, the simple past tense. Here the doer is obvious. Almonds are grown in California. Well, we know that almond farmers grow the almonds, so we don't need to mention them in our sentence. This time we have a present tense of be plus past participle. Or sometimes we want to leave out the doer. We don't want to mention the doer. A mistake was made. We're focusing on the problem or the mistake and not who made that problem. Our verb was made, simple past of be plus the past participle. All three of those, was stolen, are grown, was made, are examples of the passive. They have a form of be plus the past participle. Let's identify some. The injured children were taken to the hospital. Is that active or passive? We look at the verb, were taken. There's a verb be, were, and the past participle, taken. So that has to be a passive voice sentence. Another. The president's text message has angered some people. The verb is has angered. And we don't see any form of be here at all. So it's impossible for the sentence to be in the passive voice. It's active. The government was overthrown by the rebels. Was overthrown. We have the past tense of be, was, and the past participle of overthrow, overthrown. So that's a passive voice. Some criminals are put into crowded jail cells. Are put. Active or passive? We have the verb be, are, And we have the past participle of put. As you remember, that's an irregular past participle, and the form doesn't change from the present to the past. Put, put, put. That's a passive voice sentence. Many store owners in Maryland are selling illegal copies of popular movies. Are selling. We have the verb be, but we don't have the past participle. So this is the active voice. Do you remember which tense that is? Present progressive. Are selling. Students at PGCC are required to take the placement test. Our verb, are required. Be plus the past participle. It's in the passive voice. Many houses have been destroyed by the hurricane. Have been destroyed. We have a form of be. What is the be form? Have been. So it's the present perfect form of be plus the past participle, destroyed. It's the passive voice. Many students have been preparing for the national exams. What's the verb? Have been preparing. So we have the form of be again, have been, in the present perfect tense. But we don't have the past participle. We have the ing progressive form, have been preparing. And you remember that tense as the present perfect progressive. It's in the active voice. Chemicals are removed from the water using a complex process. The verb is are removed. We have the form be and the past participle removed, so that's in the passive voice as well. Computer virus protection must be updated regularly. What's the verb? And don't forget to include the whole verb. Must be updated. So we have a modal plus be in its base form, and we have the past participle, the passive voice. So how do we change a sentence from active to passive voice? Here's an example. Dr. Jones discovered the dinosaur bones. The first thing we do is we make the object of this sentence the subject of the new sentence. So there's the object. It becomes the subject, the dinosaur bones. Use the verb be in the same tense as the main verb. So there's the main verb. Now let's put that in the same tense. We know that discovered is past tense. What is be in the past tense? Well, we have a choice between was and were. And since our subject is now the dinosaur bones, we need to choose were, not was. And then we just add the past participle of the main verb. Discovered. In this case, it's a regular verb, so it looks just like the verb in the main sentence. You can add by plus the agent if it's necessary. So we're just going to add the subject if we think it's important. In this case, by Dr. Jones. We want to know who made the discovery, so we'll keep the agent. So let's change another one from the active to the passive voice. Farmers use nitrogen to fertilize fields. The verb is use, and it's in the simple present tense. The object is nitrogen. That will be the new subject of the sentence, so we begin with nitrogen. Then we need the verb be in the simple present tense, because use is in the simple present tense. Nitrogen is used to fertilize the fields. There's be in the simple present tense and the past participle, used. Don't be confused with the ed on used. That isn't past time, that's the past participle. In the passive sentence, it's the verb be, or is in this case, that tells us that it's the passive voice. Okay, try one on your own. The school administers tests every afternoon. And how will that sound in the passive voice? The verb here is administers. Tests are administered by the school every afternoon. So the verb administers is in the simple present tense, The verb be, in this case are, is in the simple present tense, and we use the past participle of the main verb, administers, which becomes administered. Notice that I put parentheses around by the school. That would be optional depending on the context of the sentence. Someone stole the bike from the bike rack. Notice this sentence is in the simple past time, so your answer has to have the simple past form of be. The bike was stolen from the bike rack. We dropped someone because we don't need to know that. The workers have prepared the reports. So this sentence is in the present perfect tense. What is the present perfect of be? Well, we could use have or has, and the new subject, the reports, will require us to use have. The reports have been prepared. So here's the difference between an active voice verb in the present perfect, have prepared, and the passive voice verb in the present perfect, have been prepared. Here's another sentence. Researchers have found a cure for the disease. This is in the present perfect in the active voice. What's the new subject? A cure. The subject will be a cure for the disease. When that becomes the subject, we have to make sure that the verb agrees. In this case, has. A cure has been found. So in the active sentence, researchers is plural, and we use the helping verb have. In the passive sentence, the subject is singular, a cure. So we need to use the singular form, has. How about a question? Why did they throw away the food? So first you have to decide the tense, and we know this is simple past because we're using the helping verb did. What is be in the simple past? Well, it could be was or were, depending on the new subject. The food was. Now we need to make that in a question. Why was the food thrown away? So in the original, did throw, active voice, becomes was thrown in the passive voice.